nuclear power is back. It's now
Nuclear power.
Nuclear power is now popular.
Okay.
Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, all looking to invest in their own power source by setting up their own nuclear centers. They are partnering.
I have a strong hunch.
You have a strong hunch.
They're partnering with the big Some A. So Sequoia did. They have this conference called Ascent AI. It's a new one. They do it every year, and
They do it every year for many years now.
for 3 years now. This is the third year.
Welcome to the show of
Hi, God.
Admin Access, the show that is strictly AI propaganda. Dominic,
I don't approve of that. But anyway, let's go. Let's get into it.
it's true.
There were a lot of AI.
Which is your first
propaganda
story?
today. Well, it's actually not AI related, but has some sense of AI in it. Anyway,
I know it.
so I've been doing a lot of thinking. So my first story is not even a story per se in tech. It's about a book that I love rereading, but to be politically correct, re-listening to every year because I hardly read
be
books,
honest.
but I listen to a lot of audiobooks. So I've been listening again to Algorithms to Live By, which is a book that actually I think you put me on like a couple of years back.
By some guy, Christian something.
Yes. That's the book. We can link it over here for you to see. But anyway, so he talks about a bunch of algorithms in computer science and machine learning that would just be amazing principles to live by. And I think I'm kind of stuck on the second one. It's called the exploit algorithm. Do you remember it?
I do remember it. Actually, I remember in the book it talks about how the exploit model says that, if I have a certain amount of time to look for something, I should spend 33% of the time.
That's called the ultimate stopping theory. That's
Ultimate
the
stopping
first
theory.
algorithm.
Okay.
Yeah. So exploit is actually it's an algorithm that answers this question. When you're faced with a decision to go with what you know or strike out in a new direction, what do you do? And now that introduces the exploit. Because you could either explore, which means continue searching, continue going into a new direction to find something, or exploit, which is make use of what you know.
Make use of
to
what
seize,
you've already
gathered,
amassed
what
at the time.
level of information you've already gathered. But you see, now the deep thing about it, in my opinion, is how he begins to apply it in different contexts, right? So like a classic case is in thinking about it in the context of a business. So if I have limited resources and you can only do one or the other thing or a bit of both, like for instance, all your future cash flows and your business breakthroughs will come from either exploring new opportunities, right? Or new verticals and experimenting. But sometimes when you do this work, it really leads to a path of like very low short-term returns.
Yeah.
And remember, you have like shareholder pressure or you have bills to pay.
Yeah,
So
that's the one thing that I never quite understood. That always, throws me off about, the stock market. It's the fact that you're beholden to shareholders who will always want
Results
a graph moving always up and to the right.
hockey stick.
Up and to
Everyone
the
wants
right.
a hockey stick.
And yet you know that to make some huge leaps and bounds, you often need to go through
A lot of discovery.
Yes, you need
A
to
lot
go
of
through that valley of
experimentation.
experimentation, and it's like,
Yes. So, and it's basically the same context of like, okay, so what do you do when you have limited resources? Do you spend time experimenting with new ideas? I'd like to say, like, we're still pretty new in the pod. So we're doing a lot of
we are in our explore phase.
We're in our explore phase, right? And it's usually good while it lasts, but you sometimes have to go in on development immediately after. So what do you do as a business? Do you do both? And luckily speaking, it's like an algorithm that's been applied in things like machine learning, specifically in reinforcement learning. So you know how we train models. There's pre-training of models in multiple ways. Reinforcement learning is where you let the neural network or the AI to literally go and make decisions on its own and figure out if it has a positive or a negative outcome and then go. So when you think about it, it's like a graph that is wavy, up and down. And sometimes for the AI to make a decision, it will choose a local maximum, but which is not necessarily the global.
There might be maximum. A higher peak, but you wouldn't know. At that moment, you just seem like you are there.
So you make a decision that, hey, when I get to like a local maxima, let me just make a decision at this point and exploit it, right? So the exploit algorithm that's been used a lot in training of like reinforcement learning is a very good metric for thinking about business as well. Like, you have to bring in the context of time. Time is what makes the exploit algorithm a very good mental model to work with in life, where when you have so much time, it makes sense for you to spend a lot of time exploring. But once you know the territory, you shouldn't be concentrating a lot on the exploration. You should be mostly concentrating on the exploitation bit of it. So that was like the argument.
I remember
it really is contingent or bound by time.
I keep reminiscing to the time when you and I were working on our startups. There was one we did that was a delivery product, and there was one that we did was a consulting. And I often try to think about what would I do differently. And people have asked me, especially students, about, I want to get into business. And the first thing I always tell them is, don't get into selling your services immediately after school. And funny enough, I usually talk about the exploit model in the sense that when you're selling your services or you're selling your work, the work that you do, the time that you're investing, you really don't have a lot gained for you to start exploiting that early. So you don't have the networks, you don't have the reputation, you don't have the capital, you have nothing that works your favor.
I mean, and you have a lot more safety net when it's just out.
So what that means is that you just spend a lot of 10 years grinding it out. I mean, you'll gain a lot of experience, but you won't. But that's not really why you're getting into business, which is to make money, as opposed to like building a product which on its own can stand its own merit. Nowadays, if someone is like trying to figure out, I'm finishing school, should I get into business? Should I start building things for people? I'm like, do not do that. Your time to exploit has not yet come. When you're in your 40s.
You can exploit.
That's the time to exploit, because at that time
you've gained enough territory as well. You've gained a lot of. So there's a quote I remember Jeff Bezos was talking about when he was taking a gamble on starting Amazon, and he said something in the lines of I just paraphrase. He said, "I imagined an 80-year-old version of me, like what he would think about taking a gamble on." What did he say? Taking a gamble on the internet era, and I knew I would not regret taking a chance on like an internet business that seemed like so much hype with what I believed in at that particular point in time. In my opinion, he kind of applied that exploit with the context of thinking about time as a mental model, where you're thinking you'd have more regrets. And when I even think about the time that we spent building our startup, I think about it in the same context. Like, if there was a time for exploration, it's like a baby. It's like, in fact, the journey of a baby growing up. Like, babies will put anything in their mouths. They're trying to, like, you give a baby...
Make sense of the world.
They're trying to make sense of the world. But the older you grow up, like, the more, quote-unquote, territory that you've amassed, you need to start exploiting. Anyway, it was a very good mental model. But one last thing that I think really blew my mind about it is that learning... Like, I think Huberman talks a lot about this. Professor Huberman, very, very interesting in terms of like
neuroscience. The Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Exactly.
I'm just pointing to my eyes. And no, we are not going to have a blinking contest, because I would win and you would lose. And that wouldn't be fun for you.
Like, mental models and stuff.
I was listening to his episodes, and I keep talking about this big thing, and at some point I was like, is this too much?
I don't get it. I'm in too deep.
I know I'm dumb, but I can't be this dumb. But anyway,
but he said this. There was this thing that I actually found quite interesting in the book that they talk about, that boredom and fatigue are quite possibly like an evolutionary based or an evolutionary based prompt in your body to tell you when you should start exploring again. Interesting.
Yeah, I honestly have nothing to say to that. Makes sense.
Philosophically.
I haven't read the philosophy.
Yeah, but
it
is
on the bottom side, I do agree. Sometimes you get bored, and just either changing the parameters of what you're working on or just changing the environment gives you that fresh curiosity. I am trying to make it a rule that when I'm bored at work, I try to do things that are like more like debugging, because then it becomes a puzzle. So it's like I'm trying to explore the nature of the problems and all that.
Completely unrelated, but maybe just drawing this line to tech of the big four. I was just thinking between, okay, let's just say Apple.
Oh, man, you know,
Apple.
I am very biased.
The Google that we must not, whose name shall not be mentioned, because some people, have gainful livelihood from there.
I have a family.
Microsoft and Meta. I was thinking the other day how Apple has fallen behind in the AI wave, which is actually my main story, so I'll not preempt it, but I'm just saying, I feel like they failed to exploit. And because of that, like, they're so far behind right now.
Interesting. We shall
Get
see.
We shall get into it.
Okay. For me, a story that piqued my interest that I've been thinking about was how nuclear power is back. It's now
nuclear power.
Nuclear power is now popular.
Okay.
And all the forces behind it.
Okay.
So again, a lot of times we tend to think of, human beings, we're very rational. We look at things, trading, X, Y, which is more, which is greater. And oftentimes we're really just led by emotions. There's a book I've been wanting to read called The Master and His Emissary. Which talks
The Master and His Emissary.
Yeah, which is more about how the brain, again, emotion first, rationalize later.
That's like thinking fast and slow.
Yeah.
Daniel Kahneman.
Yeah,
like
something of that sort. And for the longest time, nuclear power has just been a dirty word. And now, with a lot of recent developments and new factors coming into play, we're seeing nuclear power make
a comeback in the zeitgeist.
Yes. So just to name a few examples, I think Denmark have started to talk about making investment into nuclear power. Spain experienced its biggest outage. I don't know if it was nationwide, but across greater parts of the country. And they are like fully on the sustainable energy path. So they're now investing into natural gas.
Okay.
But then they've revisited talks about opening their power plants.
The nuclear power plants.
France heavily reliant on nuclear power and is just continuing to double down. So now you're seeing countries get into nuclear power generation. There's a story that had piqued my interest a while ago, but I didn't think it was that big. But even companies, and by companies, of course, I mean big tech, Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, all looking to invest in their own power source by setting up their own nuclear centers. They are partnering.
I have a strong hunch.
You have a strong hunch?
They're partnering with the big Some A. OpenAI.
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying they're partnering with is it like a nuclear company? But they're all looking into having their own source of power to generate enough power for the
data centers.
For the data centers that need to compute more and more
just time
data
compute and GPU.
And give us more and more models. So we are seeing a convergence of the business need, in this case being, again, the buzzword.
Compute power, AI compute.
Yes, we are seeing the geopolitical need because, a lot of...
It's basically like cloud 2.0. Like when cloud became a big thing, everyone was striving to build like the biggest data centers in their countries. And now we want the biggest data centers for, GPU compute, for AI training, for AI computation in your country. Yes, basically.
But that's
why they did even that target.
But that's just a small part of the puzzle. Here, that's just on the business side.
Okay.
Now, on the nation front side, then they're looking at it from the point of view of one
resilience or
EU, and I think this heavily affected by the war. Russia did cut off a lot. Was a huge provider of energy to EU through natural gas, and then them looking at how can we de-risk ourselves. We can't be in a position where someone who is an adversary is also our chief producer of
like a very critical.
So we'll bring back, and again, a huge part of this decision would be war as well.
Blood alone moves the wheels of history.
If you're looking at a horizon where war is
a possibility,
then it's all about who has the ultimate weapon, and that's the nukes. So for all these reasons and more, nukes are making a comeback and they're becoming popular.
There's definitely a geopolitical angle to this one.
Of course.
That's looking very interesting. I don't think I've thought about it in the context of war, but I'm actually welcome to the idea that I see the possibility of war looming in the next.
Okay, even if not war, there is the threat of war or the risk. And one
and the
way
threat
to
of war
risk yourself
is to
have the
like
biggest
double
gun.
down on the
So
have the
you
biggest
need to
have the
your
biggest
own nukes.
Yeah.
And so we shall see. Or we won't see, it might all just go on
Alrighty.
in an instant. All we ask is, just keep us out of this. Don't, as we're still using hydroelectric power.
Leave me alone!
Africa,
when
we
you
love
throw-
our
when you throw in
geothermal.
nukes, yes.
We have our geothermal.
I just
We just like
I just clicked on add.
Bro, you don't have YouTube.
I want to feed my family.
Okay, but what's his name? I need money.
You didn't need to bring
Google
that up.
Okay, let's go. Or you're feeding the family. Because
Either way.
you're feeding
Either
it.
way.
Okay, I'd. So, today, I wanted to bring us back to the beloved story that I think it actually started 2 weeks ago when you asked the question, do you still think AI is hype? Or is there really meat to this, right? So, this whole started when this company called Sequoia. Sequoia is one of the big 10 VC firms. They've
I'm
pretty
going to
much
stop you there.
backed him.
I remember when we were starting doing our business and I'd go to Sequoia.
Yeah.
I remember they had this slide where it was like NVIDIA.
NVIDIA,
and
they've
then
backed
Scrolls,
OpenAI,
and then
they've-
Uber.
They've literally backed everyone.
It's like if you see the word Sequoia, you need to shake.
Yeah, you're in the big leagues now.
So I was like, we're going to see Evans and Tommy there on like Pigeon. Delivering burgers in Kenya.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow, global traders.
But here we are.
Here we are talking about it now.
Moving on.
Yes, moment of silence. So, anyway, Sequoia did, they have this conference called Ascent AI. It's a new one. They do it every year. And
They do it every year for many years now.
for 3 years now. This is the third year. But I would welcome every discerning nerd to go and check out the playlist of all the guys who
Ascent
talked.
AI.
Ascent AI Sequoia. They have like a playlist of I think 15 videos or something. But I'm going to focus on the keynote because the keynote really painted a clear picture of the hype that we talk about. What is AI? Is AI still hype? Blah, blah, blah. And all those fun things. So before I even get started, because I was afraid that this particular segment might go a little bit deep, I wanted to start by maybe just clarifying some key terms that would be thrown in here and there with regards to AI. First thing is reasoning, right? What is reasoning in terms of models in AI? What do you think it is?
What is reasoning?
It is exactly what reasoning means.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to follow that question.
And it is basically the process in which, like neural nets, like AI,
Reinforcement learning.
like it uses available information to make inferences, to draw conclusions, to solve problems and make predictions. So whenever we talk about reasoning and reasoning models, it basically means the art of these neural networks either talking to each other to make these conclusions or the models themselves drawing better and better conclusions that are human-like, right? So that's reasoning in the model context. Another big word that's usually thrown around is TTC, test time compute, which usually refers to the amount of computational resources that an AI model usually utilizes during the inference phase when it's trying to make a decision, right? So this is usually things like the processing power. This will now be the GPUs that we're always talking about. Memory is big because memory determines a lot of what they call context, like the context with which an AI can, they usually say it can hold up to like 1 million token context or something to make an inference or something. So basically this depends on memory and with the ability with which we can minimize our test time compute, we make our AI models way more efficient. And that's why it's a really big buzzword and that's why everyone is making like big bets on investments. In fact, there's like a 500 billion investment, I think, by Oracle, by OpenAI, and I'm trying to remember the other guy. but they've built like this massive gigafactory level farm, data center in Texas, in some remote town in Texas, just for thousands of GPUs, right? To just do, minimizing TTC is like the name of the game, and it's a very, it's a key process. And then there's something that we talked about lightly called agents, right? Agents and agent scaffolding. That's a very big buzzword as well.
Agent scaffolding.
Yes. So we've already talked about the models, the core models. Now I want us to go a bit up the vertical, right? So these agents usually refers to like all the auxiliary code, the tools, and the frameworks built around a core AI model that will allow it to act more like an autonomous agent. We covered an episode, I think 2-3 episodes ago, when we were talking about agentic AI.
Which product was that was doing Tesla financials?
Yeah, it was Manus AI.
Manus.
Yeah, and there's a lot more that's coming. In fact, I would love to kind of get into it, but now with that out of the way, I can kind of get into the detail of the arguments that Sequoia posed, that I thought were very good things to kind of think about. So the first assertion that they made is that startups need to focus more on building solutions in the application layer of things.
Not in the model layer.
Yeah. Creating
live models to the big boys.
So this is the first, in fact, this is if I would summarize the first keynote on that, I'd just say startups need to focus on the application layer, creating vertically integrated, very function-specific solutions, right? That are customer-backed or customer-centric, going back into the technology. So that's basically their first argument. And they made a lot of interesting arguments. They started by comparing, if you'd consider AI and the opportunities that AI brings as a new wave, they broke down the previous batch of companies that earned more than $1 billion in free cash flow. They're not unicorns, companies that actually earned the $1 billion, yeah? Because many companies are unicorns, but when you go down to the
unicorns in valuation alone.
Unicorns in valuation alone, but not really in revenue. So you'd notice that if you break down the stack, the technology stack in terms of applications, things that are developer facing, data security, and maybe infrastructure at the bottom, you'll have the infra companies being very few, Google, AWS, Azure, guys like Apple. When you go up the security side of things, guys like Cloudflare are there. When you look at data, we're talking about guys like Splunk, Snowflake. When you talk about developers, we're talking about these infra businesses like Stripe. We're talking about Twilio, the Atlassians of this world. And then when you go to the apps, the application layer is where you find the majority of businesses that are actually bringing in value, and the ones that have actually minted more than $1 billion worth of revenue consistently year after year. So that's the TikToks, that's the Instagrams, that's the Lyfts, that's the Ubers,
the mobile apps of the world.
Pretty much the mobile apps, or the Zooms, or the Salesforces, or the Palantir, and everyone. So many people are building the minted value in the application layer of things. There are way more companies in the application layer of things than in the infra. And their first assertion is that this will translate as well.
It makes sense because, to be in the infrastructure layer, how much capex do you need to just even try to compete with a Microsoft or an OpenAI?
Correct.
You just can't.
They've built such a huge moat from, in terms, even investment-wise, on the infra level, built over years. When you go much lower down the stack on the infra, you'll find that the guys who are there are really deeply embedded. These are companies that were founded in either the first wave of compute or the second wave, right?
What are these waves?
The first wave would be the main OS wave, like the Microsofts, right? And they were bringing in new platforms and new infrastructure for building apps. And then we can maybe call the 2000s era, where there's the .com internet services and building apps. Maybe we can even say 2009 for mobile, for instance, because that's when app stores really tapped into some humongous rails of distribution that were never there before. So that is an argument that can be made, right? But now here's the thing. But as much as we have the assertion that there's a lot of value to be minted in the application layer, there's also a lot of competition in this new way, because a lot of these foundational models are already doing things like reasoning. They're already almost end-to-end products when you think about it. Like Google search doesn't make sense right now if you can just go to Gemini or ChatGPT and get not only an answer to my query, but a well thought out inference given a mass of information, right, to my query. So that is the big difference here, where there's a lot of companies, but with AI it looks a bit slightly different because the stack they are literally just infringing all the way into the application layer. But now, so their big assumption was you have to think customer back, right? There is a humongous opportunity for startups and services that are now starting from the customer first and then focusing really on AI that is very function specific. And I can give you a good example. It's this new, very hype AI startup called Harvey AI. It positions itself as an assistant to legal firms. So it goes very deep to work alongside lawyers to cut down on the time that they would do to research on cases and things like that. And when you think about it, there's opportunity now when you start thinking vertical, function specific.
Once these guys allow AI lawyers, I have a whole list of people who will not sleep.
No, go for it.
I
have to go for it.
I have a neighbor who there's a construction company. There's a construction right outside my flat, and they're just pouring water into the road. So every day I just dunk. I just drive into it. It's like, I really wish I could sue you and win. Like, if I knew that was
all you needed was an AI, and you can.
I don't even want to make money.
I just want
to go to Harvey, tell it, you know what, let me give you details for this guy.
These are the details.
Yes.
Craft a case for me. Make a case for me.
Yeah.
So anyway, this excited me when I started thinking about it, because I was thinking there is a humongous opportunity to build moats as now. Because when you think about the opportunity that AI brings, it's about leverage, right? We're getting closer and closer to the vision where one person could actually build a unicorn by themselves. Because when you think about it, I like the case when it's part of my predictions. But when you think about it, when you think, what does it take in a life cycle of building a product? You move it from a vision, then you build the product and maybe have a lot of engineering done. You sell it, you sell the vision to people, market it, right? And sustain that funnel through sales, and you continue supporting the customers that you have. That is a typical business studies, life cycle of what it takes to come from an idea stage to like a production stage, right? But there's now opportunity when you're coming from the customer back all the way back into the tech, because you see AI gives you like a lot of leverage. Like for verticals that are looking for solutions, you can be very opinionated with it. Like you come into a legal space and tell them like, hey, I can build you guys like the best legal aid assistant. Or when you go into the case of, there's a startup called Open Evidence. It's basically a WebMD killer. It is so nuanced. Okay, I'm just saying. But when you think about it, it is so...
You reminded me this meme I was watching. You search your symptoms on Google and it's like, you got this illness.
Oh, yeah.
And then when you search on Bing, you are going to die.
So there's this really hot startup called WebMD. It's a bunch of neural nets specifically trained for medical research and everything. So it does a really good job, basically. Especially even alongside like...
And is it customers, the doctors, to help them make the decision, or is it the customers to help you self-diagnose?
Actually, we can do like another deep dive episode on this one, but it's really, really interesting. It's really mostly used by a lot of medical practitioners and stuff. But I don't know about the WebMD. So guys, ask guys, I have a migraine, and then I go to Open Evidence. So you could have a tumor on your left side of the...
You're about to die.
Hemisphere of the brain. Anyway, so that was the first argument. I don't want to get into it because we'll take a lot of time here. But so what? That was an overview of the state of AI, as it were. But then there's two parts in terms of predictions that they talked about. One was agents. So let me try to paint the picture of what they're trying to say here. We've already talked about agents, what agents are. Remember, these are like all the auxiliary tools you build around core models, AI models, right? That can autonomously do work. So inherently, when you think about the stack for the future of work, how it used to be, and I have a graphic here, like imagine this is a business that needs to function. It has all these departments that you need, right? You need customer support. You need to assemble product. You need to a team that delivers the product. Like we've gotten to the point where agents right now can single-handedly handle like a function at work. A good example would be, let's say, customer support, right? A lot of agents right now can handle a lot of customer support queries and so on and so forth. But with where we're going, and these are now big buzzwords that we can get deeper into in the latter episodes coming on, things like MCP, which is like agent-to-agent communication protocols, right, that are being built. There's some that's already been deployed by Anthropic, and there's like a lot of trends that are happening right now in this space, in AI, that can essentially now increase the leverage of very vertically trained agents that have gotten so good at doing, let's say, just finance and accounting, and an agent that has gotten so good at doing, let's say, customer support. So inherently, we're building functions of work through these agent startups, through these agent products, through these agent models that are being trained by businesses. And we're getting closer and closer to a world where, like, these agents can also communicate between themselves. So now you as a business person, you are like now 100x leveraged to just think about like the human in the loop type of problems, right? So it is almost requiring like a different kind of mindset. And I'll tell you why this, I think, is very interesting. Just last week, I was seeing like all the tech layoffs that are happening. And you know what they say? The big buzzword will be like, performance, reviews. But I know, in my opinion, I heavily suspect that it's when you can begin to almost make certain functions agentic or make certain functions very modular. It's like I'm leveraging a swarm of 10,000 agents that are working when I'm sleeping. Why should I keep a specific function? I mean, that's a lot
Business
to think
function.
about. And maybe to kind of, I don't know, doom, like some of the, the gloom would be, there's an episode, and maybe you can link it here. And there's an episode by Dario of a CEO where he does a roundtable of like some AI guys, and it was pretty interesting. He talks about the future of AI, and maybe we can comment about it sometime later. But
We should probably do a review of it.
yeah,
But I'll be honest, and I'm not trying to throw shade or anything, but I remember when we were just to hear CEOs talk, and to be honest, right now I'm like,
no, it actually.
I feel like it's almost like an appeal to authority,
I
where because I remember someone was showing me a video about Obama talking about how AI is going to replace all the jobs, and I must myself,
And I started thinking to myself,
this guy's a politician.
yeah.
I don't know much about AI, but I'm pretty sure I know more about AI.
This guy. This guy.
It's like, But you see, I can't say anything because he was the president, so it's like, okay, I'll just shut up. But deep down,
Okay.
I'm just seething.
So let me even get into it a bit specifically. He does an interview with the Replit CEO.
Obama, that is.
No, Steve
Oh.
Bartlett, the CEO episode. He does an interview with the Replit CEO, an evolutionary biologist, I think, and a certain entrepreneur who's done and exited a couple of companies. And it's kind of like the neutral party. So the evolutionary biologist, I'm telling you, in my opinion, he was actually spitting the most facts. He was like very right on the money. But I invite you to go and check it out.
I'll go
for
check
yourself
it out.
Then, but yeah.
Okay. So for me, just one more item, one more article here. And that's, to be honest, I was quite bored. As you said, when you're bored, that's time to explore. That's the time to explore, as our patron saint Huberman of AI says.
Well, actually,
And so I was watching like the mirror, and I was talking about the Audi R8, and of course, me once I hear the word car, I'm in.
You turn on.
Yeah, but it got me thinking about Halo products, and I want to just talk to share just the few thoughts that I had about them. And first, to distinguish what a Halo product is. And it's when a business builds a product for the primary reason of shifting their brand. So it can make it can make money, it should make money, but that's not the primary goal.
So it's not necessarily a flagship.
It's not necessarily a flagship. A flagship is meant to drive sales or to drive, even if it's not sales to that product itself, it should be to the adjacent products. But a Halo product is meant to change how you think about them, and that's a difference that might be clear, even though they overlap. So I started looking at which are the examples. As I mentioned, the aforementioned the Audi R8, where before then, guys just used to talk about Audi's perception was, I mean, it was a performance brand, but not really at the level of the Mercedeses and the BMWs. But the introduction of the R8, where, I mean, you just saw it and you knew this
is a performance
different.
machine.
Yes,
This is a beast.
And something that's also very important is that they price it to be accessible. Because the thing about a Halo product is that it cannot be niche. It cannot be something that only a few people...
So it cannot be the Lego product we discussed last time.
It has to be very broad appeal, because you're trying to change people's minds. You're trying to get people to buy into what you're doing. So let me look for another example.
So you
started thinking about...
Wait, Jaguar did Halo marketing. They did not drop a Halo product. But anyway, no.
There's no helping those guys. And I will not even try. So a good example, I think, for me was like the Jordans, where...
Jordans?
Yes. For them, I mean, it has made a lot of money. Let's not get me wrong. And it is a flagship product. But I believe that when they were introducing that... the Jordan brand, it wasn't so much that they wanted to be the biggest line or the highest selling product, but they wanted to branch out into, don't look at Nike as just we
footwear.
Make shoes for athletes. It's more like we're now a lifestyle brand. You can buy the shoes. You who doesn't do any training, don't play basketball, just slouch and sit on the couch all day.
Sneakers. They created single-handedly.
Yes,
they created sneaker culture. Single-handedly.
So as you can see, the idea was, we want you to stop when you look at our swoosh, when you look at our logo.
Nice.
Don't think of it as people run. Think of it as it's aspirational. It's something that I myself can buy into, and they were very successful. So successful that I don't remember. I can't quite pull the numbers, but it has formed a very big part of their brand. And I was looking at articles and mentions of how people are describing it. Before then, they were talking about lightweight, innovative, when describing Nike. But from there, they talked about it as disruptive, aspirational. So you can see.
So one aspect of Halo products is that they must be accessible.
They must be accessible.
Its broad appeal must be accessible.
Yes.
The key thing is shifting.
Yes.
People's
Now,
thinking.
I'm going to use one company to define how to get that right and wrong.
One company, how to get it right. Okay, that's interesting.
And as always, I'll stick to cars.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
I guess
So,
ready for the next car.
Lexus, the company itself is a Halo product. It's like a Halo company. Toyota knew you could not compete with Mercedes and the BMWs. But people were thinking about a luxury car. They were never thinking about Toyotas. And so to compete with that, they
had to change the whole look.
Yes, they had to build something so different to the point that when it launched, if I'm not wrong, it was said that a third of consumers buying a Lexus were coming from a Lincoln or from a Cadillac. So it was already shifting perceptions, where Lincoln and Cadillacs representing, high-end American cars.
But no, it's a Lexus, but it's also affordable.
Yes, it is affordable, it is reliable. But again, it changed the notion that people had, because at that time, to buy a Japanese or an Asian car was not seen as buying a luxury car up until Lexus came in.
Okay.
And so they became the exact... In fact, they were being accused of being loss leaders, where people were saying that Toyota was intentionally selling Lexus at a loss just so that it can compete with the Mercedes. And
So that it can shift
Yes.
the brand. So
Yes.
it's not really about sales for Lexus.
it wasn't so much about sales as it was
Perception.
about shifting. Otherwise, they could have just named it Toyota. Now, Lexus was also a failure when it comes to Halo product because they saw what Audi had done, and in trying to create some buzz and some perception for them as being a sport-oriented or performance brand, they built the LFA, which every single reviewer that I have seen talk about that car has said it is the perfect sports car. Everyone. And I think, if I'm not wrong, I don't know how much they go for, but they all go for over MSRP. They all sell in the multiples higher than what the original sold for.
Okay.
But this was the problem. They're expensive. They were never accessible. So no one could buy them.
So it
Therefore,
became
the perception that people would have had. So now it's only a car for enthusiasts. For people who really care enough.
It's now niche.
Hardcore
It's no
fans.
longer broad appeal.
Yes. And so the brand perception that they were hoping to receive by creating a sport car that would show that, Lexus is also can make very sporty and very fast cars, in the same way that Audi also made a brand for them as being, very high end and very luxury. They failed at it because it was not accessible. So the two main things that are used to describe a Halo product is, one, it must be bold. It must make a statement. 2, it must be accessible. And it's hard to get those two right.
Yeah.
Another
It's
example,
almost like sometimes you have to take a hit.
you have to take a
The
hit.
revenue side.
Yes.
You have to.
Remember,
explore.
you're trying to change perception. You're not trying to. You're hoping that once people change their minds about your company, they'll buy into the other products. It's like an entry point into your product. You're trying to shift minds. You're not necessarily trying to make a profit.
Yeah.
And if you can do both, as was the case with the Jordans, that's even better.
Yeah.
Because then it completely again shifts. And you'll even see the marketing from Nike from that point on was, it's like you're daring to do
Aspirational,
very
daring
great
to
things.
do-
Yeah.
Can
Yeah.
do
Just
it.
do
Just
it.
do it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it. And maybe
Just do it.
yeah. So I found that with an interesting thing to highlight, and that's all I have for today.
Right. Awesome.
Except for our final segment,
Yes.
products.
I've been waiting for this.
You've been waiting for this one.
A
I'll
lot
tilt.
of you.
Just tilt to the camera and. Ha. For me, products today is gonna be all about automations. Now,
So wait, first of all, this is like a product for the phone. It's an app.
so this is an app.
Okay.
And primarily, it's for Samsung folks. Though, even if you're not Samsung, don't worry. I
Android.
got you.
Oh,
If you have iOS, I tried.
I got you. Got you for the
But-
guys.
But
think.
yes.
I hope.
So I found out that the flagship Samsung phones usually have this thing called Good Lock, which is a way of customizing your phone even further. Now, I am not on that
know where
plane.
that inspiration came from.
So
While you're taking,
I introduced
a
to you.
dig on,
I introduced to you
Yes.
Finelock, which you cannot get from the store. You have to go get from the website. But it's basically a tool to help that gives you those Finelock features,
automation.
which is automation. And then, so what it does is that when you open Finelock, you'll have a number of apps that you can use that each have their own customization. You don't have to install all of them, only the ones that you need. So there are 3 of them that I'll mention here. There's one called Register, which is like the backbone of what I do. Of the customizations that I use. What it does for me is that, one, it gives me backed up actions, so that for me, I like to access music very quickly. So for me, double tapping the back button, the back of the phone, open Spotify. Music,
Down.
I have that down. Secondly, accessing, I'm trying to make a habit out of recording my expenses. So I've assigned triple tap to open my money manager, so that I can record expenses quickly and don't have to think about it.
Okay.
These 2 alone have made this
They've
phone
shifted basically
Wow.
how you use
it.
like
Yes. The other one is another tool, again in Finelock. They have a mini app called Sound Assistant, which helps you control sound. And the way I am using it is that when I hold the
sound,
the
volume
volume,
up.
up, it goes to the next track.
Okay.
When I hold the volume down, it goes to the previous track. So again, I don't have to unlock my phone. It only works when the phone is locked or when you're in the lock screen. Hold the power button. I don't have to look at my phone. Like it makes the phone feel like you're on some kind of a pro version. Yeah. And then finally, with Register, you can also assign the holding the power button. And what that does for me is that when I hold it, it gives me a shortcut to create a new task on TickTick. So it's my way of, when someone tells me, oh, you need to do this.
A reminder.
Yeah,
real
I don't have
quick.
to remind myself to write or to do. I can just do it then. And it even works from the lock screen as well. So I don't even have to unlock the phone. So I'll just hold the power button
Ooh,
and
then
I
you're
can start
adding the
typing
task.
and I have what to do down.
This is like basically your version of like, keyboard shortcuts or hotkeys.
Yes.
Like for your phone.
It's shortcuts for Samsung.
Yeah.
Now, if you're not using a Samsung, that's still okay. There's an app called Microgesture. And it looks a bit daunting and you have to give it permission for accessibility, but it does the same things. In fact, this automation that for me, I learned from Motorola when I had a Motorola where shaking the phone twice would open touch. Again, never have to think about it. It's muscle memory. And with the same app, you can do the same way. You can set to back tap and triple tap. You can even do the whole volume, holding the volume up or double tapping. In fact, it gives you so many more options above and beyond what you'd get on a Samsung. And so if you are on Android, please check it out.
Yeah. I mean, I can't believe I'm on the same breath that you're doing a review for like a shortcuts app in the Android ecosystem. I'll be taking a dig at shortcuts in Apple. But like I think the same version for that on iOS would probably be shortcuts, right?
Yes.
So I am personally not as big as you are on gestures and shortcuts, but I usually have like a couple of like nifty shortcuts. Now I think for iOS and maybe like in the screen recording that you can, I have like 3 main automations that I work with. Like, and the first one would be when I'm adding like movies to like a watch list. Let's say I'm chatting with my friends, so I have a widget where I just tap and add like a particular movie, but it takes hell and back to just configure such shortcuts. Like, so this is like a basic set of instructions that you have to be like, open my movies, you show watch list, choose from a menu, do this, ask for a text, like it prompts you what movie is this, or and so on and so forth. And you have to go, it adds the movie to my like,
Speak it to the mic, man.
it adds a movie to my like reminders and my watch list.
Yeah.
It's super crazy how
I will say that when I used the iPhone and I was using the shortcuts gives you way more control.
Like
You
it's
can
really
set up so
granular.
many fine.
Yeah, but I think it's daunting for most people.
It feels daunting, and it's a good thing that they give you a lot of templates or starter packs, so to speak.
Yeah,
and
but there's one.
actually the one I was using when my wife and I were dating. So I dropped her home and then walked back to my place because we lived close to each other. And she'd always tell me, tell me when you get home. Now, but the problem is that when I get to my gate, my mind is already set on what I'm going to be doing next, is whether it's TV, Xbox, whatever it is I'm doing. So I'd always forget. So I set a shortcut that the way I told it, hey, when I enter this region, send an SMS.
Or send a text to my wife.
Send a text to my girlfriend at the time.
Yeah.
And it was like, everyone's happy. It's win-win.
That is so crazy. Well, I have one.
And for the record, I want to say that I wrote every message. And I also love you. So don't.
Nah.
I can't work it back.
You just spill the beans, bro.
But, hey,
Well,
love is love.
I have one
People
shortcut
delivered
that is
by
not
text.
a typical shortcut like you. It's not like a daily driver. But I set up a shortcut called Locate iPhone that I think is pretty cool. And I'll put you on. I don't know if you can do this, like, or the equivalent of this. So I set up an automation where if ever my phone is stolen, and I'll share my shortcut in the description so that anyone on iOS can just download it and custom make it for themselves. Whenever somebody steals my phone, either it was on or it was off, regardless, I have like a list of people of whom if they text lost phone to my phone, it runs like a series of actions. So it locks my screen, it turns on low power mode, it turns off airplane mode if somebody has turned off my airplane mode. It turns my Bluetooth on, it turns my data on, and then it literally gets the current location of where my phone is at and sends a text again.
Have you tested?
Yes, I've tested it multiple times
Yeah.
and I've put on so many people. I mean, it's not a shortcut that I use, but whenever
It's
need
a shortcut
to use it,
you hope to never
I hope-
use.
It's a shortcut I hope to never use. But if you want to try me, come at me. You know,
The next best shortcut. The only way to make that even better would to go the Israeli route to just text it to explode.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, run a series of automations, blow the phone.
Blow up,
Yeah, anyway.
burn it to the ground.
Yeah, that was it, guys. It's been a very long episode this time.
Thank you so much. If you liked the episode, please like, subscribe, comment.
Yeah.
Let us know what other automations you have, because we are eager to read your comments and to find out what you think. Help pump the stock, hit the subscribe. Share this to a friend. If you don't like the show, share this to an enemy. We'll take any view we can get. But we are from
Our
Aduna.
analytics show us that all 69 of you who watched the episode are not subscribed. That's the buzzword.
So please subscribe,
It's fun.
and we'll see you next time.
See you on the next one.